Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to Hauntra. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon so that you don't miss any exciting coming up videos. Emily, her husband Luke, and their two children, Lily and Max, arrived in the remote village of Willow Creek. The air was thick with fog, and the trees surrounding the farmhouse seemed to bend unnaturally. The house, an old Victorian structure, creaked with the weight of years. Despite the unsettling atmosphere, Emily was hopeful for a fresh start. As they unpacked their belongings, Emily noticed an old, framed portrait on the wall, a portrait of a woman with hollow eyes. She quickly dismissed the feeling of unease, telling herself it was just an old photo. That night, as the wind howled outside, Emily lay in bed, unable to shake off the feeling that something was wrong. Max had trouble sleeping, tossing and turning. Suddenly, the sound of faint footsteps echoed from the hallway. Emily sat up, heart racing. She checked on the children, but they were fast asleep. The footsteps continued, growing louder. Luke, hearing nothing, assured Emily it was just the house settling. But Emily wasn't convinced. The unease lingered. Over the next few days, strange noises became a regular occurrence. Doors creaked open by themselves, and cold drafts swept through the house at odd times. One evening, Emily and Luke were in the kitchen when they heard a loud crash from upstairs. Rushing to investigate, they found nothing out of place except for the broken mirror in the hallway. The glass shards glittered on the floor, but there was no sign of how it had fallen. Emily felt a chill run down her spine as she swept the shards into a dustpan, but Luke remained skeptical, attributing it to the house's age. One night after putting the children to bed, Emily saw a shadow pass by the window. Her heart skipped a beat as she quickly pulled the curtain back, but there was no one outside. The air grew colder, and the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She turned to see a dark figure standing at the end of the hallway. It was tall, with a wide-brimmed hat that obscured its face. Before she could react, it vanished. Emily's breath caught in her throat, and she rushed to find Luke, who still didn't believe her. Emily's curiosity about the woman in the portrait grew. She decided to research the house's history, hoping to uncover something that might explain the strange happenings. As she went through old village records, she discovered a tale of a woman named Annabelle Blackwood, who once lived in the house. Annabelle had disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and rumors of her ghost haunted the village. Emily was startled to find that the woman in the portrait matched Annabelle's description exactly. Late one evening, Emily heard soft whispers coming from the attic. The voice was faint at first, almost inaudible, but as the night deepened, it grew louder. Terrified, Emily tried to ignore it, but the whispers seemed to call her name. "Emily, come up." The voice was soft and eerie, like a ghostly lullaby. Emily could no longer resist. She grabbed a flashlight and ascended the creaky stairs to the attic. The door creaked open, but the room was empty. The whisper stopped abruptly. While exploring the attic, Emily discovered a hidden journal beneath a pile of old newspapers. The journal belonged to Annabelle Blackwood. As Emily read through the pages, she learned that Annabelle had been tormented by mysterious entities that seemed to have a mind of their own. Annabelle wrote of feeling watched and hearing voices. She feared that the house itself was alive and wanted to trap her inside forever. The last entry was chilling. They're here, and they want me." That night, Emily was awakened by Lily's screams. Rushing to her daughter's room, Emily found Lily shaking in fear, unable to explain the nightmares that plagued her. Max also complained of strange dreams where a tall, shadowy figure stood at the foot of his bed. The children's fear seemed to grow stronger with each passing night. Emily, overwhelmed by the strange occurrences, tried to comfort them. But even Luke began to notice the strange atmosphere in the house. One evening, as Emily was cooking dinner, she felt a cold presence behind her. The hair on her neck stood up and she turned quickly, but no one was there. The temperature dropped suddenly, and the air felt thick with tension. Emily tried to focus on the task at hand, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The refrigerator door swung open on its own, sending a chill through the room. Emily closed it quickly, but the unease lingered, growing stronger each day. The next day, while Emily and Luke were unpacking boxes in the living room, they noticed that Max was missing. Panicked, they searched the entire house, but he was nowhere to be found. The basement door was slightly ajar, and Emily's heart skipped a beat. She hurried down the stairs, calling out for Max. She found him in the corner of the dark, damp basement, staring blankly at the wall. When she called his name, he turned slowly, his eyes wide with fear, as if he had seen something unimaginable. The following morning, Emily and Luke were shocked to find a strange, deep scratch on the back of Max's neck. The mark looked like it had been carved into his skin with something sharp. Max insisted that he hadn't felt it happen, and he couldn't remember anything unusual. Sarah, a local from Willow Creek, had warned Emily about the house's cursed nature, mentioning that the spirits trapped there often left marks on the living. Emily, desperate for answers, tried to comfort Max, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something dark was growing stronger in the house. That evening, the air felt heavier, almost suffocating, as though the very walls were closing in. The ominous presence had made itself known once again. Emily, feeling desperate and increasingly paranoid, turned to the village for help. She visited the town's historical society, hoping to learn more about the Blackwood family's past. There, she was told about the old well on the property, which had once been used for local rituals in the 1800s. The well had a grim history. It was believed that the Blackwoods had used it to dispose of their enemies, trapping their souls within. Sarah, the local, revealed that many families in Willow Creek had lost loved ones to the well's dark energy. Emily's mind raced with the realization that the spirits haunting the house might be tied to the well itself. As she returned home that night, the wind howled, and a feeling of dread washed over her. That evening, Emily and Luke decided to investigate the well, convinced that it held the key to the house's haunting. They found it hidden behind thick trees at the edge of their property, a place they had never noticed before. As they approached, they heard faint whispers drifting through the air. Emily froze, her heart racing as she glanced around, but saw nothing. Luke urged her to look down into the well, and when Emily did, she caught sight of a shadowy figure in the depths, standing motionless. It was a woman with hollow eyes, identical to the woman in the portrait. Emily stumbled back in shock, and Luke pulled her away from the edge. The whispering grew louder, and they both heard the chilling words, "Come to me." Emily's blood ran cold, and they hurried back inside, realizing they had uncovered something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. In the following days, the haunting intensified. The children began acting out, their behavior becoming increasingly erratic. Max had stopped speaking altogether, and Lily began drawing strange symbols on the walls, symbols that resembled those in the journal Emily had found. The house felt colder, even during warm afternoons, and the once peaceful atmosphere was now replaced with an oppressive heaviness. At night, the whispers were louder than ever, echoing through the house as if the very walls were alive. Emily and Luke's sleep was disturbed by the sounds of footsteps in the halls, doors slamming shut on their own, and the faint sound of crying coming from the attic. Each day, they became more desperate, but no matter how hard they searched, they couldn't find the source of the sounds. Emily's search for answers led her to an ancient book in the village library, which described the rituals performed by the Blackwood family. The Blackwoods, a powerful and wealthy family, had been known for their involvement in dark practices, including summoning spirits from the beyond. These rituals often required a sacrifice, and Emily soon learned that many of the people who had disappeared in Willow Creek were believed to have been victims of these practices. The ritual center, the well, was where the sacrifices took place. Emily realized that Annabelle Blackwood, who had vanished mysteriously, might have been a victim of her own family's twisted traditions. But Annabelle's spirit, it seemed, had never truly left the house. It was trapped, restless, and now it sought revenge. One night, as Emily was reading the journal once more, she felt an unsettling presence behind her. She turned around, and there in the doorway stood the figure. The tall, dark figure in the wide-brimmed hat. This time, the figure was not just a shadow. It was solid, its form darker than the surrounding darkness, with hollow, empty eyes that seemed to bore into Emily's soul. As it stepped forward, the air grew colder, and Emily's breath turned to mist in the freezing air. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, she heard a whisper in her ear. "It's too late." The figure slowly vanished into the darkness, leaving Emily trembling with fear. With each passing day, the events grew more violent. Emily and Luke could no longer ignore the danger that surrounded them. The house seemed to breathe, its walls shifting as though something was alive within. The children were no longer safe in their rooms. Lily would cry out in the middle of the night, claiming to hear the woman from the portrait calling her name. Max would wander the halls, staring blankly at nothing. Emily's own mind began to unravel. She could no longer distinguish between the living and the dead. The haunting had taken hold of her sanity, and it seemed there was no escape from the darkness that now surrounded the family. Emily's desperation led her to the one person who might know the truth. Sarah, the local villager. Sarah revealed that she was the descendant of a family that had once opposed the Blackwoods. She told Emily that the spirits trapped in Willow Creek were not just victims but vengeful entities. Annabelle Blackwood in particular was bound to the house, her spirit cursed to roam forever, seeking to claim anyone who dared to live there. Sarah warned Emily that if they didn't leave the house soon, they would become permanent residents of Willow Creek, trapped by the malevolent forces forever. Emily finally understood. Escaping the house was the only way to save her family. With Sarah's guidance, Emily and Luke gathered their children and made a desperate attempt to leave the house. The night was pitch black, the fog thicker than ever. As they reached the front door, the house seemed to come alive. The walls groaned, and the floorboards shook. The shadowy figure appeared again, blocking their path. It reached out, but Emily, her heart pounding, grabbed her children and ran. The figure's voice echoed in her mind, but she didn't stop. They made it to the edge of the property, and the moment they crossed the boundary, the house fell silent. The whispers stopped, and the chilling atmosphere vanished. They were free. Months later, Emily and her family moved far away from Willow Creek, finding peace in a quiet town far from the cursed house. They tried to forget the horrors they had endured, but the memories lingered, like a shadow that followed them wherever they went. One evening, as Emily sat in her new home, she noticed something unsettling. Max was standing at the window, staring into the distance with an expression of deep concentration. She walked over to him and asked what he was looking at. Max didn't respond, but Emily followed his gaze. In the distance, beyond the trees, the silhouette of the house stood dark against the twilight sky. The whispers, faint but unmistakable, seemed to drift toward her from the shadows. The haunting had followed them, and though they had escaped Willow Creek, they realized that the darkness was never truly gone. Thanks for watching, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for more new videos.